Secret of Mana is going through a re-evaluation. It's traditionally been considered one of the best JRPGs or action adventures on the SNES, and it sits near the top of many best-of lists. Today though, similar to Sonic the Hedgehog, people are playing the game and coming away with some quizzical looks. Is this it, they're saying? I don't really think that Sonic or Secret of Mana are getting a fair assessment, but I'm somebody who recently completed Secret of Mana for the first time, and there were times that I wanted to quit too. The combat is particularly unpalatable for those of us acclimatized to modern game design. Unlike most action games, you can rarely dodge enemy attacks, and you're forced to take them on the chin. You regularly have control taken away from you as you recover from long stun conditions. When you attack, sometimes you hit the enemy and sometimes you don't, but it seems to be random, making the player feel like they aren't in control. Enemies can be spongy, and if hitting them again and again doesn't wear on your patience, the frustrating pathfinding of your AI companions certainly will. It seems like textbook bad game design. But I want to defend Secret of Mana. It comes back to something I said a moment ago, that Secret of Mana used to be considered a great action-adventure or JRPG. But which is it? An action-adventure or a JRPG? It certainly looks like Zelda, and it has action game controls, but as you explore the mechanics, you realise it has a lot of mechanical similarities to an ATB system like Final Fantasy IV. You have to wait between each attack for your attack gauge to fill up, and special attacks are chosen from a menu. The looks are deceiving here, but Secret of Mana isn't really an action game. In JRPGs, combat isn't enjoyed for the fast-paced skill involved, rather you enjoy them for some slower-paced decision-making, and most importantly, the spectacle. In Secret of Mana, when multiple spells are popping off in real time all across the screen, attacks, buffs, heals all at once from enemies and party members at the same time, you start to see the appeal that Secret of Mana would have had in 1993 of seeing the spectacle of a JRPG battle from a top-down, real-time perspective. Blowing up an enemy in one magic attack that hits a weakness never gets old, and though charge attacks take ages to reach full power, when they hit and those big numbers start flying out, it's totally worth it. It's also worth it because each enemy you kill helps raise your weapon level, and this is where Secret of Mana starts to get a little bit addictive. It starts with weapon orbs, which are found in the world, and they're extremely enticing because they allow you to transform your weapons at the blacksmith, and that gives more damage, a new charge level, and usually some sort of special effect. But you don't get the benefit of the new weapon until the character has used that weapon type enough. All characters can use all weapons, but they only gain proficiency with whichever ones you use. This encourages you to mix up which weapons you use, while also creating a uniqueness in your party. In your game, the girl might be proficient with the axe and the bow, but in another player's game, the girl might be proficient with the fist and the whip. Your companions don't have names, by the way. They're usually called Girl and Sprite. I called the girl Tangle, I called the sprite Brave. Anyway. It's a similar story for magic spells. Spells are obtained by magical spirits and they're grouped together a little bit like spell books. And the more that you use spells, the more powerful that spirit becomes, and therefore the more powerful those spells become. It's interesting to me to remember that the first Mana game was the Final Fantasy Legend. In a different timeline, the Secret of Mana might have been the Final Fantasy Legend 2, and in that case, the Ice Spirit in this game might have been Shiva, and the Fire Spirit might have been Ifrit, and so on. Of course, that's just an idle theory, but what isn't theoretical is how these systems make it really rewarding to keep fighting enemies, even if the combat's a little janky. So while we're talking about Final Fantasy, we should point out that while action-adventure games might get away with very little story, JRPGs really require a strong story, and Secret of Mana does not have one. It has just a handful of characters, they each have a thimbleful of development. It basically lacks a lot of the complexity you expect from a Square Enix plot and characters. But for me at least, Secret of Mana makes up for it. It makes up for it in the world. Not the level design, but the atmosphere and the variety of environments. There's this eerie forest made of crystal. There's this desert town, which seems downtrodden until you return the water, and then everyone wants to party like they're in Dubai. There is the Mana Forest, which is haunting and dangerous and vibrant. There's even a cheery mushroom kingdom. Mario would be proud. It is a bit like Mario, actually. It might not have a story, but it has a vibe, and that's enough to draw you into the world. In fact, I don't think any JRPG beats Secret of Mana for feeling sunny and adventureful. It's partly the pixel art, but even more so the music, which strikes an exceptional balance between chirpy and ethereal. It's truly appropriate for a light-hearted quest about nature and the threat of losing it. Indeed, that's the one theme that does shine through in Secret of Mana, particularly at the end of the game, where the hero has a genuine dilemma to face. It's actually the one time in the game that the storytelling matches the heights of the game's audio-visual qualities. This is a bit of an out-there comparison, but Secret of Mana reminds me of Diablo. It's a real-time RPG, but not one known for its plot or its responsive combat mechanics, but one that thrives on a finely tuned atmosphere and a satisfying sense of progression. That's the lens that Secret of Mana deserves to be seen through, and when you do, you realise that it still deserves to be known as a classic.